You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters, with thanks to Wexford Insurances. Wexford Insurances. More information at wexfordinsurance.com.
I'm joined now by Gerald O'Donoghue from Igneus Energy. Tell me about the company.
Igneus Energy is a renewable energy company. We're based up in Enniscorthy out on the old Dublin Road. We were formed in 2005 and we distribute solar thermal and commercial biomass boiler systems, and we've just added solar PV now to our product range.
Before we dive into finding out a little bit more about Igneus, I'd like to learn a bit about yourself first.
Okay, well, I was born in Davidstown and went to school in the CBS in Enniscorthy. Left the CBS and went to Trinity College and got an honours degree in mechanical engineering. And then I joined Calor Gas for 5 years.
What was your role in Calor?
I was trained to be a technical services engineer, so we were designing commercial gas services layouts and also commercial heating systems.
And where did the idea for Igneus come from?
I suppose the original idea came back in 2002 or 2003. There was a small period of time when there was a sharp peak in oil prices, and really it caused havoc and consternation out there amongst the commercial clients. And I hadn't lived through an oil crisis. I'd only heard my father and older brothers and all speaking about it, but this was like a mini oil crisis. And I said that there is a real opportunity out there to start a company that could reduce energy demand and also do it with renewable energies. So it came about, and a couple of years later I saw oil prices were continually increasing, and I didn't see how that situation was going to stop.
From the very beginning, what was the original product range that you had in mind for the company?
Well, the original vision for the company was to approach commercial customers, industrial customers, and recommend commercial biomass systems to them. And commercial biomass at the time, biomass boilers were more expensive, but the fuel was coming in at half the price of oil. So it was a very good business strategy, I suppose, to look at. But when we approached the clients, a lot of them wanted solar thermal options because at least they weren't going to get any bill at all whatsoever. So it gave them great future proofing.
You then looked at gaining an agency to distribute solar panels in Ireland, is that correct?
That's correct. We did extensive research. I went to many shows throughout Europe, and after this research then we agreed terms with an Italian company called Kloben, and they're the third largest manufacturer of evacuated tube collectors in Europe, and their largest market is Germany. So they had a very good technical backup team, good engineers.
What were the big challenges for Igneus in the first few years?
Well, there were many challenges, as there are with any startup business, but I suppose to name but a few, but there were the long sales pipeline. By the time we could get a sale from a commercial customer, it could have been 3 years since we first went into them. That was also due at the time to the lack of awareness of biomass products. There was also no case studies out there that people could go and look at. So they really had to take you on your word and trust that your background or your engineering background. And also a critical one was the supply chain for the actual fuel. So at the time there were no manufacturers of wood pellets in Ireland, and since then Balcas came on and some other large importers, and that helped steady the ship there. And also there are many local Wexford and southeast producers now of wood chip, so that argument is no longer there. So now biomass has really gained a good foothold in the market.
In the first few years, how did you develop a customer base?
When we added solar panels to our product range, we then decided to go after the installer market. We didn't want to be dealing just specifically with homeowners or specifically with with commercial clients like hotels or nursing homes. So we decided to approach the installers. And at the time, we started training up installers before there was any grant aid, basically to a manufacturer's specification. And then that led on to wholesalers. And recently now we've also decided decided to spend some time doing digital marketing through the internet and try and get a presence there. And it's working out quite well. It's a good opportunity for a small company like ourselves who don't have a large marketing budget.
So I know that Sustainable Energy Ireland actually do still provide grants for solar. Have you any experience of what those grants are today, and are the drawdowns still as popular as they ever were?
The grant aid for solar panels was reduced to a flat rate of €800 per dwelling. But really, the grant aid is there in theory, but not in practice. It's basically very difficult now for a homeowner to draw down a grant for solar panels. And when it comes to commercial, the grant aid has gone completely. There are no more grants for commercial solar panels.
Why is it impossible now for a homeowner to draw down a solar grant?
They've basically set it up in such a way that it has to be a house that was built before the 2008 regulations, number one. And any houses built since then, they've made it regulation that you have to have 10% renewables, and therefore they won't grant aid it. So it's basically any house that have been built to 2008 regulations should have renewable energy, so why would they grant aid it?
And what about houses that were built prior to 2008?
Yes, certainly. In theory, they're eligible for a grant, but it's very, very difficult for them to get it, because when you look at the energy you can get from the solar panels, the government or the SEAI have the bar set above that actually energy level for most houses. They have it linked to the square footage of the house, and it is extremely difficult to get it. The link between the area of the house and the number of people in the house is not realistic.
As you said earlier, there's been mixed reports about the overall output of solar panels because of the quality of product. From your experience, Gerald, what should people be looking for in a product if they were going out to buy it today?
There are some indicators that they should look for. Number one, it's not a hard, fast rule, but it is a recommendation. I would say go for a European-made product. There are many other areas in the world that make good solar panels, but it's usually a good starting point to go for a European manufactured panel. Also then compare efficiencies. But you have to be careful here, because lots of companies will quote efficiencies in BTUs or kilowatt hours. So try and get back to comparing apples and apples. Compare the energy output per square metre. That's another very important one. And leading on from that, also now look at the aperture to gross, or the net to gross ratio in square meters. So basically, is 90% of the panel giving you energy, or 80% of the panel giving you energy? I would also say that people should take an overall look at the system as a kit. It's not just the solar panels. Another key piece of equipment in the kit is the cylinder. It'll be a dual coil or triple coil cylinder. But something that people should look for, some key points, would be the level of insulation on the cylinder. Look for at least 2 inches of insulation on the cylinder. And I would say that the square metre of the solar coil should be at least 1 square metre. To take the energy from the panels sufficiently.
Just to come back to your own business, what are the big challenges facing you today?
Well, the key challenges that are facing us today, I would say, would be short-term thinking by commercial customers. I mean, for example, if you go into a hotel or a swimming pool, they'll be allocated every year a budget to spend on oil, and as long as they stick approximately within those terms, that's fine. But solar panels or biomass, etc., will not fit into an annual budget. You need to look at this over a 5-year or a 10-year plan. So really, my business is suffering because of short-term thinking, but also the actual commercial businesses are suffering. Like, statistically, 70 to 80% of businesses in Ireland do not have a strategic plan, so they lack vision. The other key point, I would say, in regard to a challenge in our business at the moment is finance, because the 20% of companies that do have vision and do have a strategic plan, when they go to the bank with their business plan, the bank shoot it down and they won't finance a biomass boiler or a solar thermal project, even though they make perfect viable commercial sense. Also then, as we mentioned previously, the loose regulations. We're really coming up against haphazard products, and it's hard to get the point across to maybe non-technical people, non-technical clients. It's easier if you're dealing with engineers or plumbers. You can explain the differences between your product, etc.,
two out of those three challenges lay outside your absolute control, and they would be regulations and access to finance. You can certainly change the mindset from somebody by certainly educating them and creating awareness in relation to the product itself. Based on those other two though, you don't have any control over them. How are you going to overcome those challenges?
We've actually had to start looking further afield. I mean, as you say, I can't control two out of those three, but we were looking at the UK market, and recently we were just given the distribution rights for Cloven in the UK. And we were actually at EcoBuild last week, which is the largest construction-related trade show in the world. There were 1,500 stands, 60,000 people went through the doors, and I was managing a stand for Cloven at the show.
And what's driving the demand over in the UK at the moment?
Well, really, it comes back to the Green Deal, the renewable heat incentive for the biomass and the solar, and there's a real buzz about the place. There's a real buzz in Britain at the moment, and I suppose you also have to consider there's 60 million odd people over there compared to a small market here, and everybody knows our economy is struggling. Theirs is quite steady compared to anywhere else in Europe, and it's really the only show in town.
Do you see a lot of growth for Igneus coming from the UK market over the coming years?
Most definitely. We're actually going to look at setting up a UK-based company to specifically deal with the UK business. Really, we got some fantastic inquiries. We're back over there next week again, meeting companies in Birmingham and up in Middlesbrough, and also then we'll go over the border into Scotland. So it's a really exciting time, really.
From your knowledge of the UK renewable energy sector, what do you think the main difference is between the UK government's perspective on it and the Irish government's commitment and perspective on it?
Well, the UK government are far more committed to the renewable energy sector. To start with, they consulted all stakeholders. They did comprehensive market research. So they brought in the suppliers, manufacturers, engineers, training providers, consultants, and came up with a package. And they really have put their money where their mouth is by committing to a 3.5 billion investment in the industry through the Green Bank. So even, for example, another good incentive there is that people can pay back for the system through their bill, so it's not an upfront capital cost for them.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for coming in this morning, and I wish yourself and Igneus every success both in Ireland and in further afield.
You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters, with thanks to Wexford Insurances. Wexford Insurances. More information at wexfordinsurance.com.